For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber for instant analysis of USC's 8th practice of spring camp. The Trojans came out in full pads for a physical Thursday practice. Dan, what were your takeaways from today's practice?
I think it's kind of, whether you call it hump day or not, kind of getting from the first half of the spring to the second half. One of those days where they did some things differently. Kedon Slovis got to play a lot of quarterback. I thought Matt Fink showed up really well. He's had a really good spring. He's just gotten better and better. I think his confidence, his arm looks stronger, throwing the short ball and the deep ball. So a good day for him. We got to see Vi Malapai and Stephen Carr got to run the ball. Haven't really gotten to do all that much the last couple of weeks. And Vi had a really nice touchdown burst, like 60 yards over up left guard. They don't always have enough. Maybe first line defenders, especially in the backside, but I like they just kind of fought through it. Decent contact, wasn't all tackling to the ground, but some tackling to the ground, and I think the guys up front mixed it up pretty well. I think it was the kind of practice that didn't have to go really well, but they got they got something out of it.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the quarterbacks this spring, you mentioned Matt Fink and Kedon Slovis. Are you surprised at how much they've shown up in these practices so far?
I don't think. I had heard good things about Kedon, but didn't know. So I wasn't totally surprised. I think I'm a little surprised about where Matt is. I just think. I think I'm surprised at kind of where he is from where he was a couple of weeks ago. So I really like what we're seeing with him. I think he hasn't been as good a spring, for Jack Sears as maybe he would hope. And then I think JT is basically JT. I mean, he is right now. If you were watching it, you'd say he's the guy. He looks like the starter. He gets a chance when they really want to see what they can do. In the 1 minute drill, the 2 minute drill, the red zone, goal line passing, and all that. He's a guy that you look at and say, okay, he's probably the guy. I thought Amon-Ra had a really good day. As windy as it was, I thought some of the other receivers didn't adjust as well. For the longtime fans, if you can remember, Mike Williams' freshman year was tearing up the world, and they ended up in Manhattan, Kansas, at Kansas State, with an unbelievable gusty evening, and made life really difficult. Nobody could catch the ball. And there was a little bit of that out there today. A whole lot of wind. Great, otherwise conditions, but a whole lot of wind.
Mm-hmm. We talk about the depth issues a lot in terms of the defensive backs, but we don't really mention a lot about the wide receivers. There's really only 5 scholarship wide receivers out there this spring. John Jackson wasn't there today. Is it hard for these wide receivers to have such low depth as the DBs do?
I mean, they've done some nice things when they do. When they open up with passing and they warm up, and they have 4 passers, and they have all the running backs and the tight ends and the wide receivers together. So they've got like 4 or 5 coaches, 4 guys throwing the ball and running all different patterns for whatever their position is. And I'd say they had like a dozen receivers that go through that. So that goes pretty well. But then once you get into really going fast and going play after play after play, you kind of run out of first line bodies fairly quickly. Yeah. And there's a lot of running. I mean, I think it's a good thing in the long run. I think in some practices you can see on both sides of the ball, with the secondary or the wide receivers, they kind of hit the wall just a little bit, and matchups really matter. So all you can do is evaluate them on what are they trying to do, how well are they doing it, and not kind of worry, all the way through as to who got matched up against who.
Mm-hmm. We saw extra emphasis in pass protection for the running backs today. First, they did one individual drills, just them going up against a bag, and then they actually did one-on-ones against the linebackers. It was a tough drill for the running backs. The linebackers coming downhill with that speed was hard to block. It looked like Vi Malapai was the only one who fared well in the practice, but Mike Jinks, the new running backs coach, was really on Marquise Stepp and the other running backs who suffered a little bit at the hands of the linebackers. But I thought that was a pretty important drill, given just just if this is the time to work on your weaknesses, it's spring. So I thought that was a pretty important thing for the Trojans to do.
Yeah, and I think you had a good observation. Is that not the kind of thing, or this is the first time we've seen it, is that not the kind of thing that might be worth doing every single day and, do 5 minutes of it? I think maybe absolutely. And, Mike Jinks is he's tough. He's not messing around with, Stephen is primarily, a running back, and, always everybody says, well, he could also be a wide receiver, but, being a blocker is a whole different story.
Yeah.
And, same thing for, Marquis Stepp, who's worked on his hands. He's 230 pounds, but even that, you're outnumbered. You got like a Kenai Mayoga who comes in there and he's like 245, and they give him a head start because that's how it's going to be. If you've got a blitzing linebacker and you're basically holding your ground. So, and they're coming downhill and you're looking uphill. I thought it was great. I hope we see it a lot because, they do, as you said, one-on-one, pass protection every day with the linemen. So I think that was really. I do think we're seeing some evolution as they go, through practice. They don't do the same things every day. I mean, they do enough of them in the same order, but they're mixing it up, and I like that.
Yeah, I do too. As far as interviews, we got to talk to defensive coaches and players today. Clancy Pendergast, the defensive coordinator, was asked, who's surprising you the most this spring? He said the defensive line. He says they have improved a lot so far. And talking to Marlon Tuipulotu, he said he's lost 10 pounds so far. He's at his goal weight. And Clancy Pendergast says you can already see the difference. They're moving so much faster. And that's something that they needed in 2018. And hopefully they're trying to get that for 2019.
Yeah, they're all about, I would guess, about 10 pounds lighter. And, nobody lost any strength as a result. And I think they all feel really good about themselves. And they just like the way they feel. Even a guy like Kenai Mayoga, who would like to be, he's 245, but they've got him playing a couple of, different positions. And he'd like to be down to 240, 238. So you can see, there are some subtleties that are going on that are actually happening, and guys are really thinking about it and doing it. And so I think those are some of the, the things that you don't necessarily cover, and they don't necessarily happen in front of you on the practice field, but they really matter. And it's a case of these guys are kind of taking their opportunities and their situations into their own hands, and it's up to them. It's up to you. Who was it? Coach Chad, I guess, the other day said, that what weight you are, that's a personal thing. Yeah. And you've got a lot of chance to make those decisions. And, they're all going to cite Connor Murphy as the big example of what's going right with this team, going from 255 to 268. And he's having a big influence, I think, on this team. The other thing he's doing is what so many of them are. He's playing multiple positions, yeah. And I think that's something else that's coming out of this spring that I don't think I was just kidding. I don't think I talked to a defensive player today after practice who wasn't playing multiple positions. So, again, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And I lied. It's not just defensive today. We can talk to special teams as well. Yes. And so we actually talked to you got to talk to John Baxter today, especially about the special teams player of the spring, Ben Griffiths, and his booming ability when he punts. It seems like John Baxter knows that he scouted a pretty good guy in Ben. Yeah,
his first comment was, because I said, here's what I'm seeing, and he said, you noticed. He was like really excited. Yeah. I said, yeah, he's pretty good. He said, yeah, he is pretty good. And, the idea that basically it was a 3-year process, and, he retired from Aussie rules football at the age of 27, wants to be a teacher, promised USC he'd be coming after he retired, and he did, and lived up to, and so he gives him, a freshman who's a 27-year-old freshman who can come into the coach's offices and kind of like, a professional one-on-one, conversation. Because, he, played 8 or 9 years of Aussie rules football where he was really, a really good player. And I guess, as John said, the difference there, it's like baseball, where a lot of those kids that are good athletes go right into Aussie rules football or professional sports, and they don't ever get a chance to go to college. And he said, this kid, he really wants to go to college, and we're going to call him a kid, but he's not. But he really wants to go to college, wants to be a teacher. And So he made the move, but he's going to be difficult for people, as John said, when some of the guys who USC puts back there to catch the punts, and he said, it's like having a knuckleball guy. He kicks it differently. He does not kick the classic spiral ball that turns over at the top and comes down. He kicks it kind of an end over end, and there's a different sound. When he kicks it, it sounds differently. There's a boom that you just don't know. And the thing is, if they miss one of his punts, it's going to keep rolling and rolling and rolling. So it's going to be fun to watch. And then they made him, the holder, and which is interesting. We're not even sure he's ever seen an American football game, and he could go out there as a starter at 2 positions for USC. So he's a big story of the spring, and John knows he's the big story of the spring, and he's pretty excited about it.
Mm-hmm. As far as injuries go, USC did get Brandon Peely, Jake Lichtenstein, and Isaac Taylor Stewart back out there at practice. Greg Johnson did return but did not practice. He just watched. As I mentioned earlier, John Jackson was not at practice. And Solomon Tuialapupu, Caleb Tremblay did not participate. I asked Clancy Pendergast about Solomon. What's his prognosis? Because it seemed like he was out there and getting good time, and then suddenly he's just not there. And he said that it's day-to-day as of now, but he hopes to get him back out there because he's a real game changer when he's out on the field.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of guys to play, inside at linebacker now. They moved, Kanai Moga in there. But he just looks like, Solomon just looks like the guy you want in there. He's going to initiate contact. He really understands the position. And he looks like he's the real deal. And for some of these kids, he didn't get to play in the fall with that fractured foot. So this is kind of an adjustment, for him. But he certainly looks the part, and you got to get, his pedigree and all of that. But he's one that I'm sure they're hoping to get, last, couple of weeks of really see what he can do.
Mm-hmm. So as you mentioned at the top of this video, we're halfway through spring camp. What is your evaluation so far?
Well, I think the kids like what they're doing. They want to get better. I think that's a big part of it. They came in here, I think, already wanting to be better when you see how many of them have, done the right things about their weight and all of that. So I do get the sense that this is a team that thinks they can be a lot better, and they know it's up to them. I mean, I think last year there was kind of it was like, who is responsible for this team, or who's like, and nobody was exactly, doing what you needed people to be doing. This year, I think you get a sense that they realize that what they're seeing from the coaches, from a coaching staff, that looks like it's working together better and understands what it needs to do and focused in a way that we hadn't seen, and that they realize they've got a chance to be pretty good if they get, they do as much, develop as much as they can. Mm-hmm. A big part of that is, the guys that got to lose weight. The guys that, need to, put some weight on need to do that. And you've seen, I think much more than last year, a lot of guys who look a little different, and just, slightly subtle, like JT Daniels is 7 pounds lighter. He's just enough quicker. That 7 to 10 pounds, 13 pounds with Connor, that really matters. I mean, that's a commitment to do what the coaches would like you to do. And so we're seeing more of that kind of feeling of it's up to us and we've got a chance, and let's see what we can do. So, in some ways it's hard to evaluate if you're saying, well, look who wasn't here, look who's trying to do, or look how many walk-ons were on that play. So I don't think you can evaluate it that way. I just think you can evaluate, well, what's happening at this position or with this guy, or what's happening here, and how do they approach practice. I mean, it looks like they're having fun at practice. It looks like they're excited about practice. It looks like they're trying to get better every day, and they know what they need to do to get better. Which last year it was kind of nebulous as far as, well, what are we trying to do? Yeah. Where are we trying to go with this and all that? I think we're just sort of getting through it. I don't get that sense now that they feel like we're making progress.
Yeah, I would agree. Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up for day 8 of USC spring camp. For Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.